So, Dr. Krishna Prasad, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Amit. I think it's my pleasure to introduce my friend, Dr. Sunil Ganikal from Davangere. He's a director of Davangere Nethralaya. He is, I can say, one of the pan ophthalmologists. I think he has done his Vitreretina fellowship from prestigious Shankar Nethralaya, followed by then he was working in MM Joshi Hospital. Then later on, he started his own hospital called Davangere Nethralaya. Apart from his vitreoretina surgery, I think he's a very good clinician, past scientific committee chairman, Karnataka Ophthalmic Society, also joint secretary of Karnataka Ophthalmic Society. So he'll be talking about some interesting case you've been telling me. I think over to you, Dr. Sunil Ganikal.
Thank you, KP. Thank you for. Hope I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, KP, for the kind introduction. Let me share my screen. Okay, today I'll be presenting two short cases within a stipulated time. Both have got the same post-operative problem, but we have treated them differently. The first case is a 60-year-old woman who underwent a phaco-foldable IOL implantation 9 months back. She had a good post-operative visual acuity of recovery of 6/6, but came back to us with a decreased vision in the right eye, in the operated eye after 2 months. The vision dropped to 6/24, but it was improving partially up to 6/9 parts. To our surprise, the refraction, post-operative refraction showed an hyperopic shift of plus 1.5 diopters. That was the matter of concern. There was a late post-operative refractive surprise in an uneventful phaco. The IOP was normal. Slit lamp examination was unremarkable. Cornea was clear, but the only positive finding was there was a slight increase in the anterior chamber depth. There was no pseudophacodonesis. After dilatation, we saw a slit lamp examination. You can see in the clinical photograph on the left side, you can see a anterior capsular contraction with markedly thickened peripheral anterior capsule, but the IOL remained stable in the capsular bag. But on the right side of the clinical photograph, you can see that the anterior chamber is deepened, and yellow line shows the position of the IOL. You can see the slight posterior vaulting. The fundus examination was normal in both the eyes. Considering this scenario and hyperopic shift, we thought it could be due to the contracted capsule, anterior capsule. We thought of doing a non-invasive laser anterior capsulotomy was planned in this patient. Symmetrical 4 radial cuts were given, as shown by the yellow arrowheads. The AG laser was applied from the capsular margin up to the just short of the margin of the optic, and the incisions of the IOL over the haptics were avoided because if you do a AG laser over the haptics, it can cause an asymmetrical lens tilting. So 1 month after AG laser, you can see the post-operatively on the right side, post-treatment, the anterior chamber depth came back to the normal position. Even the thickness, the anterior chamber depth was normal, and the lens position also, effective lens position also moved it to the immediate post-operative period. So the spherical equivalent reduced, that means to say hyperopic shift is reduced. Even this was stable for 6 months of post follow-up. So I would like to highlight here that the simple Nd:YAG laser anterior capsulotomy is a safe and effective procedure for treating capsular contraction syndrome associated with hyperopic shift, which could be due to the posterior IOL vault. Let me move on to my second case, which has got a similar problem but managed in a different way. Here is a 50-year-old male who is a diabetic and hypertensive for the past 10 years. And he had undergone a PRP laser for his proliferative diabetic retinopathy. First, he visited us in the March 2018. On right eye examination, he had a 636 vision with a posterior subcapsular cataract. Fundus examination revealed a lasered PDR, but there was a TRD, but it was extramacular and a focal TRD. On the left eye, there was a 612 vision, best corrected visual acuity with an early PSC, and the fundus show a lasered stable proliferative diabetic retinopathy. Was advised a phacoemulsification surgery in the right eye and a periodic eye checkup of the left eye, but the patient was lost to follow-up, but came back to us after in the recent couple of months back in June with a persistent decreased vision in the right eye for the past 4 months. He gave a history that he had undergone a phacoemulsification with foldable IOL done elsewhere 1 year back. And now he says that he has got a decreased vision in that eye, and his main now cause for the unhappiness is decreased vision in spite of a good phaco done. He attributed the vision loss to the poor quality of the IOL, and he wanted his IOL to be replaced or exchanged. And he asked me, is the surgeon at fault or the IOL is at fault? Then we started counseling him, and on further examination in June 2020, he had a best corrected visual acuity of right eye of perception of light. Left eye, he had a 636 vision due to the significant cataract. Anterior segment examination of the right eye, you can see the clinical photograph here. It showed a severe capsular phimosis with a contracture with phimosis. and left eye showed a posterior subcapsular cataract. The fundus examination in the right eye was poor due to two reasons. One is due to the capsular phimosis, and other was due to the associated vitreous hemorrhage. Left eye had a stable fundus. The B scan also correlated, showed that vitreous hemorrhage and TRD. Considering these findings, with the phimosis around, we planned for a anterior capsulectomy with pars plana vitrectomy. The capsulectomy was planned basically to clear the visual axis for the pars plana vitrectomy. So we planned for a capsulectomy. Here the surgical method was used, bimanual maneuver was planned, and the radial incisions were given before enlarging the capsulectomy. The pupillary margin or a pupillary dilatation was taken as a reference, and make sure that you try to use as much of curved scissors as possible to get a circular opening in the capsular thing, capsular contraction. So you can take out all the capsular material by membranectomy using a scissors. We could have done with this with the vitrector also, but the fibrosis was a little bit thick, so we used the scissors in this case. After removing the capsular fibrosis, we washed the AC and used a visco to get a maximum dilatation of the pupil by viscomydriasis, and we completed the pars plana vitrectomy. Post vitrectomy, patient had a good visual recovery. I would like to highlight here, most of these complications are preventable. The patients becomes unhappy basically because of the poor surgical techniques, and especially in high-risk cases. So one can plan the surgery beforehand only to avoid these complications, but once recognized, they can be treated properly and effectively managed. Thank you. Thank you for your patient hearing. I would like to thank the AOS Scientific Committee for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil. A wonderful presentation, very nice videos. The lead discussant for this particular talk is Dr. Girish Rao and Dr. Arulmozhi Varman. I request first Dr. Girish Rao to start with.
Very good videos, Dr. Sunil.
Thank you.
I don't really have much comment on the first presentation. I think what you have highlighted very well, the ideal use of the Nd:YAG to do a very minimally invasive technique to solve the problem. And even the second case, I think, was very well managed. The patient was unhappy because of probably an inadequate capsular CCC size during the primary surgery itself. But what you did was very well managed. And I would have done probably the same way. I wouldn't use a vitrector to do the capsular enlargement because it becomes a little uncontrolled, especially in a thick capsule which is stuck to the lens. It's very difficult to get the bite of the capsule into the vitrector, and sometimes you might actually end up chewing up the iris. So I think it was very well managed, and I don't have any further comments. I think what you have done is apt to make an unhappy patient happy.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Arulmozhi Varman, sir.
The same issue, I concur with whatever my co-chairperson has said. The first case was a moderate contracture, which could be handled very easily by doing a YAG capsulotomy anterior, which opened up the capsule and then let the lens go back to the normal position. So identifying this and doing it was fantastic. The second case was a very bad capsular contracture with retinal problems. So you need to have a good visualization. Trying to do a YAG in that is going to be very difficult. As the pupil is very small, a vitrectomy also will be difficult. There's no other go but then to do a manual scissor cutting of the anterior capsule, which is done beautifully. And once this opens up, everything is fine. Now, there are some issues here. How do you prevent this? Doing a ideally sized capsulotomy to start with would give you some amount of preventive measure from this occurring. But in some cases, in spite of the best intentions, the best done capsulotomy, phimosis still occurs. This occurs due to probably something like pseudoexfoliation already being present in the patient. So you look at these conditions. If the pseudoexfoliation present, do a larger than normal capsulotomy to start with. So you will not end up in this situation. But you may still find these occurring with the best done procedures. You would handle it as it comes up and do the best that's possible for that particular patient.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful presentation, Sunil. I think Dr. Srini is ready. I think over to you, Dr.
Thank you, Anand.